OTAs began this week, and it's our first glance at the new Redskins rookie class working with their teammates. We'll bring you the word out of camp, plus break down the LLB position group next. Another year, another opportunity for Deshaun Jackson to skip voluntary workouts, and another sex scandal rocks the college football world. Hold the door, hold the door, hold the door, Hodor. Stick with us here on the Hogsty. Coming up now.
It's the Hogsty.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another day, another episode of the Hogsty. Happy to be with you here on, as of this recording, Saturday, May 28th. We're going to bring you the latest word out of camp, like we said, plus so much more. My name's Sean Conti, and I'm here with Steve Thomas.
I'm very excited to be here. We're here on another morning, so it's not another Hogsty late night episode, which is a good thing.
That's right.
Hogsty.
Yeah, we've got
Hogsty After Dark.
Yeah. Those are all a little rough, but that's the smooth sounds of Mr. Robbie Duncan you're hearing, by the way.
Good.
Robbie, how are you?
Good morning, Sean. How are you?
Good. Guys, I feel like I sound really gravelly and tired.
You do sound a little sick or something, man.
I'm going to need to put some pep in my step for this episode, guys.
You need to load up on Red Bull.
Yes. Oh, my God, it was too early. See, we do this at 10 a.m., and that's too early for me to get my ass out of bed and
We
drive
haven't really
down
found a
7-Eleven.
sweet spot for these yet, because 11 o'clock is not good, because we've done a lot of 11 p.m. shows.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, so maybe we need to hit the noon hour or something, like lunchtime maybe. It might be just enough for Sean to wake up.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know about you people at home, but I'm not really fully awake until at least noon, no matter when I wake up. So, wake up at 10, I'm still not going to be awake for 2 more hours.
Does that apply to your work day as well?
Yeah, everybody knows that I'm the guy who's sluggish, and I'm the guy who consistently 15 minutes late. Guys, consistently 15 minutes late, and perfectly on the dot 15 minutes. You think I could just readjust my schedule 15 minutes earlier, but no. Every day, I'm 15 minutes late.
See, when you spend 2 decades in the military, it tends to drive things like early mornings into your head, whether you like it or not.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm used to the early
Same.
mornings for football and all that, so.
Well, let's hope that the Redskins down at OTAs were more like you, Steve, and less like me. And they were on time and ass in seat, ready to go every day. So, lots of words coming out of camp. I think we need to hit outside linebackers, but maybe we should talk a little generally about stuff that we've been hearing outside of camp. We were just chatting before the show. Robbie, you made an interesting point about the safety situation. It looks like that might be kind of clarifying a little bit in OTAs.
Yeah, it's a little different than we expected. Right now, our starting safeties are D. Hall and David Bruton Jr. Bruton was a pretty good safety for the Broncos, but I don't think we all expected him to come in to start. He's kind of a dark horse for that spot. But the even more interesting thing is that in their 7-on-7s and 11-on-11 drills, when they were in the cover 3 look, Bruton was the deep safety, and D. Hall came up and played the strong safety position. So that's something to, sink your teeth in.
Yeah, well, I always thought that D'Angelo Hall got a bad rap from sort of the public at large about his tackling. Because if you're going to be the strong safety up in a cover 3, you have to be a tackler, right?
Right.
But I think he's an underrated tackler. He got, a bad rap for it because he would jump routes occasionally and miss the jump, and so the guy would get past him and it looked like he made a bad tackle. But the truth is he was always, in terms of a corner, he was always a pretty good tackler. So maybe it's just a situation where either A, they're just giving Bruton some experience as a free safety, knowing that they're going to flip, D. Hall back there, or B, maybe D. Hall is just a better tackler than Bruton, one of the two.
Well, I mean, you look at last year when D. Hall finally did switch to safety, he was flying all over the place and hitting guys. Like, he even hit his own teammates a lot of friendly fire from him. So he's definitely got the physicality part checked off for the safety spot. I guess it's just a little bit surprising to me, though, that they actually have him playing strong safety right now.
Yeah, but it's the first voluntary OTA too. I mean, it could easily just be an experiment, and things will go back to normal once they get to training camp.
Yeah, and that's the thing that Coach Gruden said in the post-OTA press conference. It's the beauty of the pencil. It has an eraser. You can erase
That was a good quote.
It was a great quote. So
Props to Gruden.
yeah, whatever you see now is most likely not going to be the same way. I mean, because
Well, notice that they had Spencer Long as lining up at center, for example.
yeah, that was with the twos, as I understand, because I think Lichtensteiger has been good to go. But speaking of penciling in starting positions, what last I saw of who they had lined up as the starting D-line for our base 3-4 package, it was Kendall Reyes, Kedrick Golston at nose guard, and Chris Baker.
At
Yep.
the end.
Yeah, at the end. So that's also
It's
something.
leaving out the big name there. As we talked last week, the Hog's Eye told you that Stephen Paya needed to perform, and lo and behold, he's not in the starting package for the first OTAs. I don't think that bodes well for him.
Paya has also been lining up a lot of one technique, like a nose guard, too, from what I heard in the OTAs. So that's maybe they're looking at him to be a nose guard now instead of a 3-4 D end.
Or maybe he's going to be a 4 DT in the 4-3 package.
That too,
Whenever they
yeah.
do that. I tend to think he's more of a 4-3 D tackle anyway, sort of by body type.
Yeah, I agree.
I continue to believe that it's going to be a big off season for Stephen Paya. That dude is going to have to show them that he can be productive. Otherwise, with his salary, I think he's going to be on the street, if not.
Another guy that's had a really good couple days at OTAs was Quentin Dunbar, our favorite wide receiver turned corner, who had 2 interceptions during the last OTA practice this week.
I think it's pretty amazing that Quentin Dunbar can do what he did.
Mm-hmm.
It is not an easy transition at the pro level. I mean, we could all, in a flag football game in the yard, we could all do that, right? I mean,
Right.
we could go from receiver to corner, but you're talking about a dude who's never played corner at a high level, even in college, and for him to just be able to get the technique down. He's apparently a film rat, a real film junkie, rather. That's what I've heard about him, which is why that he's able to make the transition. But, maybe he's one of these guys that long term he's going to end up being like our nickel guy, maybe,
Yeah.
Our permanent fourth corner, maybe, depending on how things shake out. Because Kendall Fuller practiced. Did you notice that?
Yeah, I did. He was full go.
Yeah.
He was doing well from what I heard, too.
Was he? Yeah, good. Because considering I thought he was still recovering from his ACL. It makes me wonder why the heck he hadn't signed his contract. I mean, what's that all about? He's the last one.
I've heard third rounders are always the most trickiest ones to sign, apparently, but I'm not sure why.
Well, but you see, in this case,
I wonder why.
It's even more weird because since we've signed all of our other draft picks, there's only a finite amount of money. There's a rookie draft pool, and we get X amount of money for all of the rookies each year. That's how it works. And so, when we've signed everybody else, his money is what it is. There is no debate about the money because there's only a certain amount of money left that the rookies can get. So it makes me wonder, what is the hang-up? It's going to be a 4-year contract. It's going to be whatever the dollars are that are left, and that's it. I just think it's odd. Maybe he's got a difficult agent.
Maybe.
Yeah, could be. We got off the subject of safeties really fast, but I wanted to ask you guys real quickly what you think is going on with Duke. So Bruton's his former teammate over in Denver, and Duke survived that first round of cuts where we cut all our safeties.
Yeah.
He's still around, but it's sort of, I'm surprised not to see him featured more early here. Just a little surprised.
It's a little surprising. It's hard to tell unless we're in practice. I mean, clearly the coaches, if Bruton really truly is our number one safety, I think they just saw more than they did from Duke. Obviously, they like Duke, because another guy who's been through what he's been through here would have been gone a long time ago.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
multiple
they've
injuries.
held on to him,
Yeah, they've held on to him in spite of the fact he seems like he's constantly injured. So they obviously see something in him, but I think he probably is just getting outperformed right now.
It might be.
Yeah.
But he when he was healthy during training camp and preseason, I mean, I saw a guy that was, playing with fire under his butt. He was all over the place, hitting guys, making plays. He looked like a really good, strong safety for us, and then he got hurt. So
Right.
I
As always.
don't know. He could just come out of the woodworks and get that starting spot again. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean
Yeah,
the pencil
time will
quote.
tell.
The pencil quote applies.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point.
There's
Yeah.
a long way to go.
Well, other words out of camp
Niles
while we're
Paul.
on. Yeah, Niles Paul.
He's
Yeah, actually,
been a
I was going to
beast.
say quickly before that, guys that we're not seeing, Junior Gillette, Chris Thompson, and Sean Laval all still battling injuries and won't actually be participating. But
Yep.
yeah, Niles Paul. So hit me
Welcome
up
back.
with the info with the movement on that front.
Well, first of all, he's got a beard like that's its own person.
It's always been glorious.
Yeah,
It's like a
I-
wildling beard in Game of Thrones.
Yeah, it kind of is.
It's
The beard is
Tormund.
sort of its own person. It's like mini Niles or something. But the word out of camp is that Niles Paul's been a beast so far, and he's way, way, way ahead on his rehab on his ankle. We'll get to tight ends another day, I guess, but there's going to be a serious amount of competition at
Yeah.
tight ends.
It
Even
remains-
They
Derek-
say he looks bigger too, like he bulked up a lot.
It needs to be said again. He beat out Jordan Reed for the starting spot last year before he got hurt for the whole season. So,
That's
I
right.
mean, either way, it's going to be good for the offense.
Well, he looks bulkier. Neither one of them are tall for tight end in terms of tight end position because I think Niles is 6'2", and Jordan is 6'3" at
Yeah.
most. But Niles looks bigger, looks bulkier, looks stronger. So I think he's a guy. He was always a better blocker. Jordan's never been a good blocker.
Right.
He's gotten a little better, I think, but he's been basically terrible at it. And so
He just can't go up and get that ball like Reed can.
Yeah, right. I mean, but
That's
he
the
was a
only
wide
difference.
receiver, and he does have good hands, even though, like you said, he can't get up and go get them. But he's kind of the guy who's going to be the best blocker of the bunch.
Yeah. God, how nice will that be to have a nice
Plus,
blocking tight
he'll
end?
be more like a gadget player too, because he will be playing some fullback here and there, like a H-back type role. So he's gonna be a very flexible player for the offense, a guy that can kind of move around and create a mismatch
It
for.
wouldn't surprise me if they split him out at the X receiver occasionally,
Yeah.
just to throw people for a loop.
Mm-hmm.
Even Derek Carrier's running around and practicing again. I guess apparently, despite his ACL he suffered last year. So there's really and Logan Paul. Everybody's forgotten about Logan Paulson.
Yeah, I almost forgot about Carrier. Full disclosure.
I think Carrier's forgotten about Carrier.
Yeah, exactly. God, it's nice. There are a lot of toys for them to play with this offseason, and that's only going to make for a better team. Exciting stuff. Anything else out of OTAs you guys want to talk about, or should we move to our gentleman who likes to skip OTAs?
Well, I would just throw out there that Perry Riley was in a walking boot this week.
Yeah.
Just as a point.
There's a snake in my boot.
And then Kirk Cousins was looking pretty sharp. I mean, considering it was just OTAs and 7-on-7, 11-on-11, no contact stuff. But hey, when you're asked to throw the football and be sharp, that's what you got to do. And that's what he was doing.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, am I wrong in thinking that Chris Cooley this week had a quote that said, "Working with the ones for him isn't going to matter much"? Did I just dream this, or did I see this quote coming from Cooley?
That's not something I've heard. I'm not up in the D.C. area as much anymore. I can't listen to Cooley's radio show as much.
Yeah. Well, hopefully I'm just wrong about that.
Oh, you're missing
Forget
out.
that, people. Yeah. I'd like to real quick go back, Robbie, to Spencer Long at center. Is this something
Yeah.
that's going to be? Does he have potential at center? You think? Is this a real thing, or is this just the coaching staff playing, or what's going on with that?
Well,
I
well
think
they
they're playing-
expected this, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, Long has a little bit of experience at center, but right now I think they're just toying with the idea to see if he can do it, see if he can snap the ball accurately and do all the, the steps and necessary things you have to do after you snap the ball. I don't see this as a way that they're trying to supplant Corey from the starting spot. I think Corey is our starter no matter what, unless he gets hurt, or if he's somehow seriously underperforms in camp, he gets outperformed by, I guess, Spencer or whoever. But yeah, I think they're just looking to have a backup plan in place in case Corey goes down again, so they don't have to go back to, Josh Laribas if they don't need to.
Well, the rumor coming out of the draft was that Scott McGowan really liked Ryan Kelly, the center from Notre Dame.
Yeah.
And that he just kind of lost out on him the way the draft shook out. So, that may mean that he knows he needs options at center. Just couldn't get him this year.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
the other question I have before we move on with OTAs is how the left guard position is going to shake out. Is Ari Kwanjo ready to make a jump in his development and push to start, or Is he going to have a Morgan Moses type year and then also and surprisingly be the top guy at that spot? Is Sean Laval going to be healthy? Is Spencer Long going to be pushing for that spot, or is he still just going to be pushing for like backup center or just backup lineman in general?
Well,
I'm forgetting. Did Laval play left guard and right guard?
He played left guard since he's been here. I think he was a right guard at Cleveland, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, but he's only been left guard for us. If you go back to last summer, Robbie, when you were at training camp, what did you see in Quanjo then?
Quanjo, to me, was very slow feet. He got, I don't know, kind of got stuck in the mud against guys in one-on-ones. I think he had trouble with playing low. I'd see him get popped. Guy would get underneath him, and he'd get, put up in the air a little bit. It's just a lot of technique stuff that still needs to be worked on. I'm sure, I would assume that he's improved on that stuff since training camp last year, but...
The slow feet is just a physical thing, though, isn't it? I mean, that's not a technique thing.
Oh, it's both, but yeah,
Both?
it's a little bit of both, but mostly physical. Yeah, you just got to work on it. Ladders, different, footwork drills and stuff to get you going.
Tires.
So it
Yeah.
sounds like, and then unless he made a really big jump, then he's probably not. Unless he made maybe even a bigger jump than Moses did, he may not be ready to be a starter this year. Is that a good guess?
That's my initial guess. I mean, that's how I was on Morgan Moses going in last season.
Yeah,
I thought he had no chance to even push for a starting spot last year until training camp, and I was blown away by what I saw from him. I mean, I go back to that quote I heard from Coach Callahan last year. He said that Ari Quanjo was the best fourth-round player that he's coached, or something like that. He's the best fourth-round prospect that he's had the chance to work with, or something like that. So, who knows? Maybe he does make this big jump. Callahan seems to like him.
Yeah. Let's hope. Because I mean, Laval is getting old, and getting older, and he's expensive. At some point they're going to get rid of Laval, whether it's Quanjo or Spencer Long or who knows who else. Somebody's going to replace Laval in the next year or two.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Someone will come in. I think that's the case for a lot of these guys. These are not permanent positions. Obviously, we're seeing.
Well, I mean, I kind of if you just go based on draft position, it seems like the future would be Long, and then Quanjo would be the backup. But really, I don't think this coaching staff cares whatsoever about draft position. It's whoever is going to be the best player is who's going to be the starter.
Well, our seventh-round draft
I
pick
agree.
from last year, Austin Rader, apparently put on a ton of muscle. He bulked up big time and seems to be ready to, make a name for himself this training camp too. So who knows what we got in him either.
I mean, our boy Laribas is only on a 1-year deal, so he's going to have to perform and be out.
He's just thanking his lucky stars he got that much.
Well, they're not going to keep a third-string center only, right?
Right.
And so, Laribas is going to have to show he's versatile. He's going to have to take some steps forward, and he's a little older than these rookies. Quanju and Spencer Long. He's going to have to really show something to stay on the team, I think.
Yeah.
If Austin Reeder's made a leap, especially.
Yeah, definitely. I think the Rebus knows his position here is tentative.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, let's move on. Let's talk about God. This is funny because I feel like with this episode today, we could have we're almost like carbon copying our episode from last year exactly this time. Okay, we're like doing our position group breakdown. We're talking about Deshaun Jackson skipping shit that is voluntary, but he should be part of. So that brings us into our next topic. Okay, so once again, the media is all over Deshaun Jackson for not coming to these voluntary workout things. Now, last year, actually maybe Robbie, as a player, as our resident player, you can. We had you do this last year, but you can discuss what your take on voluntary versus involuntary really means.
Well, it's a, you want all your teammates to be there. I mean, yes, it's voluntary, but I can speak from my experience in college. It's a little different in college, obviously, but when coaches made things voluntary meant mandatory in a different term, in a different connotation. Like they literally would say, voluntarily get your ass here. You need to be here. But if things were optional, then it was, you don't have to be here if you don't want to. You don't have to come to this event.
And so they would make it clear that if it was optional versus
Yes, if
versus
something said
mandatory.
optional, you knew you had a choice. If it said voluntary, you'd have a coach or a player banging on your door asking where the hell were you. But
Well, here's the thing with it for me, okay? And I did not play in college football and obviously not pro football, but if I was a pro football player, and it's my whole job and my whole identity, there's no way I would miss a team activity. I can't imagine. I will have it be said that I believe Deshaun Jackson has a newborn baby. I think does he not?
Mm-hmm.
I'm,
Something
I'm
like that.
reasonably sure he's got a baby. But that aside, it's your whole job, man. I mean, I know the collective bargaining agreement, the CBA, makes this stuff truly voluntary, and the coaches aren't allowed to go, wink, wink, it's voluntary. They truly have to make it voluntary. Otherwise, they're going to get in CBA trouble. But at the
Yeah.
same time, if I was a player, I want to be at every single team activity. It is my entire job. It's how I make my living. I just don't understand how a player would not want to be at an event that all the other team members are practicing. I don't understand that.
I mean, I think this is a big part of the debate, right? Is I think most people would agree with you in principle, but do exceptions get made for a guy like Deshaun? Is it more important for a guy like Ari Kwanjo to make voluntary practices than it is for a Deshaun Jackson to make
Well,
voluntary
Deshaun Jackson
practices?
isn't going to get cut. Ari Kwanzaa
Exactly.
could get cut theoretically.
Yeah.
He really sucks it up.
Exactly. So while you can kind of understand that all these guys are going to show up prompt on time, they're fighting for their spots. They have a lot to prove. They have a lot to improve. Do you feel as strongly that a guy like Deshaun Jackson shows up to these voluntary things? We kind of know who he is. We know what his skill sets are. They're pretty unique. They're pretty high level skill sets. Is it really that important that he gets this time in with the team? I mean, this is the debate everybody has with him all year. There was an awesome article that came out, and the headline was Deshaun Jackson. Just the cost of doing business in the NFL. In other words, this is just the way it's going to be in the NFL with guys like this. So, I mean, does it really offend you, I guess, Steve, that he would skip this, him specifically?
It doesn't offend me.
I mean, that was the wrong word, but you know what
Yeah,
I mean. You know.
I don't understand it. I'm just not built like that. He's a different dude, right? He
Yeah.
kind of got run out of Philly, and
Yeah.
Chip Kelly's is what Chip is. Okay?
Nasshat.
Dipshit.
Yeah, okay, yeah,
There you go.
both those words. But he kind of got run out of Philly for this same sort of attitude. It
Yeah.
was the impression I got. Put the gang stuff aside because it really wasn't fair to Deshaun to label him
Right.
with all that stuff.
Agreed.
But I got you kind of got the sense that Chipper didn't think Deshaun was going to get with the Chipper program. And
Right.
here I think Scott McLuhan and Coach Gruden understand that Deshaun is a little bit different. He's very much an individual. He does have a lot of media interest going on outside of the Redskins. He had the show on, I think it was BET last summer. That was
Yeah.
a reality show.
That didn't last long, did it?
Well, it went one season. I don't
I
know.
guess reality came crashing down on
Yeah, but he's from California. His wife's in California. There's a bunch of stuff going on. I realize that, but I'm just not built like that. I am
Yeah.
just the type of person. No matter to me, if I was a Deshaun Jackson, I would want to assert myself as a team leader, and I would be there just to say, I'm here. All you guys better be here if I'm here.
The leadership. I think the leadership point is a strong point to make.
Yeah. It's a lead by example type thing.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and that you guys are totally right about that. I mean, if you're a prominent player on the team, do the right thing. I mean, it only makes sense. I will say for this piece, reporters asked Gruden, for his take on this thing, and he said he was very supportive of Deshaun Jackson. He said Deshaun knows what shape he's got to come in at. He knows how to work out. Voluntary is what it is. It means voluntary. I wouldn't make him be here. So at least he's saying the right things in the media, saying he's okay with Deshaun not participating, but who knows if that's really the case.
Yeah, I can tell you, he definitely wants Deshaun there. I mean, will he make a big deal about it? No. I mean, it's not a big deal in the grand scheme of things.
Well, remember though, he can't
Yeah.
make a big deal about it.
Yeah.
The CBA prevents him from making a big deal about it. The CBA, he would get. I would think the Players Association would probably complain to the league if Gruden said, "Look, I really want everybody here. Deshaun should be here." And I don't understand why he's not. If he came out strong about it, I think he'd hear from the league.
I don't know. He's come out strong against other certain Redskins. He's
Yeah.
criticized their off-the-field activities, and
Well, I'm
nobody's
not talking about
defended them.
off-the-field activities. I'm talking about him.
Excuse me.
I don't think he can go too far in criticizing a player for not showing up for OTAs, specifically that, because that was a really big bargaining point in 2011 when they were negotiating the CBA.
Was what, voluntary?
Yeah, the voluntary nature of the OTAs, the Players Association made a big deal about that point.
Oh, there you
so
go.
I
So-
don't think that the coach can come out too strong about it. And I think if you read between the lines about what Gruden said, what he was really saying is, I wish he was here. Because he made some joke about, well, Deshaun will roll in when he comes in, he'll have a cup of coffee and then he'll leave.
Yeah.
What he was really saying was, I wish he was here.
Yeah, you caught the
Yeah,
undertones of that.
Right. And they noticed that D'Angelo Hall said something similar.
Mm-hmm.
They asked D. Hall that, and they said, he said, well, we wish he was here, but, Deshaun is Deshaun, basically.
Yeah.
He's just a
Well-
guy who's never going to be a team leader. He's an elite specialist at something,
Right.
and he's going to kind of do what he does.
Well,
And the
Well,
bottom
let's
line-
just
well, yeah,
let's
the
just
bottom
hope
line
he
is-
doesn't hurt himself week
Well,
one.
you could
That's
say,
the only thing that
I
matters.
don't know if you can really claim that this was the reason why he got hurt, but I mean, what was it? The second game of the season, Dolphins? Was it Dolphins
Yeah.
where he hurt himself?
Yeah, I believe so.
Kirk overthrew him, and
He didn't even get touched on that.
and he tweaked his hammy. That was a timing, chemistry connection type thing. I mean, you could say, oh, it's not. I mean, you think he got hurt because he missed a week of OTAs? No, probably not. But it's still like just building the chemistry, staying on the same page type thing. And could that have been prevented? Yeah.
Well,
Because
and truly, this is an off-season topic, right?
Oh,
Because
yeah.
we get to like October and Deshaun is Deshaun, nobody's going to care about May, what's happening in May.
Right.
The fans aren't going to care if he's out there running, out and ups and running past, corners for touchdowns. Nobody's going to care.
no.
Whereas if
Right.
he gets hurt again, it's going to stay. in
Everyone's going to care.
I think he ought to be here or there at OTAs. If I were him, I would be there. But he has
Yeah.
the legal right to skip it, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, he just needs to, stay healthy and perform well, and no one will ever care about this. So.
If Trent Williams can be there, everybody can be there. As far as
Yeah.
I'm concerned, if your best player and the multiple-time Pro Bowler, who by the way was working out of the state, he works out in Houston with some trainer in Houston every off season. If he can be there for voluntary OTAs, everybody needs to be there.
Well, see, Trent's slimmed down too. By the way, he's even leaned out more so than last season. He's looking
A
a lot.
svelte Trent Williams.
They're
I like
talking
that.
about how quicker he looks and faster, and so
It's tough to believe that he's going to be quicker.
put him at tight end once.
Just to see what happens.
Make some sort of trick play to get him the ball in his hands. Who's going to tackle him?
Some like 230-pound outside linebacker.
They'll
Some
bounce. They're
220
going to
pound
bounce
safety.
right off of him.
I would love to see it just to see it, but I'd hate to have Trent like pull a hammy or something running down the field for just.
You guys saw that clip I posted on Twitter a couple weeks ago of him being stride for stride, chasing down a safety on a reverse play.
I did not
Yeah,
see that.
that was Kooky
Yeah,
Town.
it was him. It was the reverse play they ran with Crowder against the Dolphins last season. Trent just.
Yeah,
You
when he
couldn't
was
do that with
downfield.
any consistency, though, right? I mean,
if you had
he's
him
like
do
a-
that,
he's
if
like
you had
a
him do that,
cheetah.
yeah, if you had him do
He's
that
like
every
this-
play in a game, yeah, he'd be tired and wouldn't be able to do anything. But
Well, Robbie, I mean, you were in left tackle, in college at times.
Yeah.
Is that is truly what Trent does? Stuff like that. Is that just amazing? Is it way above and beyond the norm?
yeah, I mean, the guy is 330
I mean, a
plus,
safety, Steve.
and he ran a 4.8 40 in the 40-yard dash. He's just insanely athletic. If he was any leaner, if he was like say in the 250, 260 range, he'd be a blocking tight end that could catch. He's just that kind of athlete. It's amazing. It is like these different screenplays, like the one when they ran. I forgot which team it was against, but the one with Matt Jones when everybody was blocking somebody,
Yes.
and you see Trent like 30 yards downfield.
Yes, that was amazing.
Yeah, it's stuff like that, then, which is, what I kind of hope that we do for the offense this year, more so of, using our athletic tight end, or not tight ends, linemen. Brandon Scherf's athletic. Morgan Moses is athletic. Obviously, Trent Williams is. We got athletic offensive linemen. We need to make them move a little bit, pull them, run sweeps, screens. Obviously, we need to use that to our advantage.
You gotta think, if you go back to when he was drafted, let's applaud. We criticize Mike Shanahan a lot around here and around the Redskin land, but the choice was Trent Williams or Russell Okung, and Okung has been good, but he's nothing like Trent Williams. Yeah, and so you gotta applaud Shanny for making the right choice there. Credit where credit is due.
Funny thing about Okung, Junior Gillette posts a lot of film clips on his Snapchat and Instagram and stuff. I follow it, and he had at least 3 different highlights of him going against Russell Okung when he was with the Saints going against Seattle. Just made him look stupid. Made him look silly. I'm so excited for that.
Oh, the last OTA update, Junior Gillette, he's apparently, I guess the word out of Redskins Park is that they're going to hold Gillette out of practice until training camp just to bring him along slowly with his ankle.
Yeah, we called that out.
Yeah, but Gruden had a great quote about it. He said Gillette's like, a kid waiting for Santa Claus.
Oh, yeah.
Which I thought was funny. Apparently he's, very excited, very, can't wait to play, and is probably mad that they won't let him play.
I'll tell you guys, if that pans out like it's supposed to, that'll be one of the most impactful things to happen to this team in a while. That will be a huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, fingers crossed for so much of this stuff. We'll keep you updated as the situation changes with OTAs. Now, we have a couple more things to talk about. We've got college football scandals. We've got our listener polls. But should we take a break, talk about something a little lighthearted? Maybe we should just chat for a second here about Kirk Cousins' his pump up workout mix. Okay, so this, I guess the full track listing kind of got released, and my God, listeners at home, it is a walkthrough late 90s and early 2000s music history. We've got The Fray. We've got
Switchfoot.
Creed. Yeah, we've got Switchfoot. We've
Matt
got
Kearney.
Matt Kearney, who I know nothing about. A band called Parachute that I also know nothing about. Yikes, guys. This might be one of the worst, least exciting pump-up mixes I've ever looked at.
Well, it occurred to me that I went after listening back to last week's show. We made all the Creed references and never really said why we were making the Creed references.
That's true. We never explained
So hopefully
that.
the listeners out there caught the fact that it was because Kirk Cousins embarrassed himself by applauding Creed.
Yeah.
As being the gym. I can't believe that the trainers actually allowed Creed to be played in the gym.
Yeah,
but
I can't believe the other players in the gym allowed that to happen. Yeah, I mean, that's just
there's
crazy.
a lot of hip hop fans on a football team. You know, I don't think Creed would be high on many players' lists.
No, I mean, and it just sort of adds to Kirk Cousins' whole persona as kind of like a good guy drip. Yeah, I mean a dork. Yeah, I mean there's no better way to put it. I mean he is not a pump you up, get you excited type of guy. I always felt like Robert Griffin's pre-game pump ups were like a little weak.
Yeah.
He were a little nerd. He was kind of a nerd too.
Yeah,
he was
Robert
kind of a nerd too. Yeah, and then I feel like we haven't, that hasn't gotten any better with Kirk
it's just
Cousins.
hilarious.
It might have gotten worse.
You're a pro football player. You're a young guy. What is Kirk is what, 26, maybe 27 at this point?
Yeah, he's got the mix, of like
and
a 40-year-old
the dude's gonna be
woman.
listening to the Fray and Creed, in the gym. I think it's funny.
I'm just glad
It is
Nickelback
funny.
hasn't shown up under his playlist yet.
You know what? He just hasn't admitted it yet.
Probably not.
That's right. That's on
I
the
still,
B-side.
every time I see the highlight clip with the sound effects where you can actually hear him talking, every time I see it, I crack up myself up. When he's like celebrating with Pierre and Deshaun in the end zone, he's like, "What a baller! What a baller!" He's just such a dork, and he embraces it. He doesn't back down from it.
Well, when you're the starting quarterback of an NFL team, I think you can handle a dork label because the laughs on the people calling him a dork.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His personality, though, is kind of like the little brother who's trying to use the cool words that, like baller, that his big brother uses, but it doesn't come out quite naturally. That's Kirk Cousins for you. He's leading this team, so round of applause for our intrepid leader, ladies and gentlemen.
Really.
All right, well, let's
We'll
move
play
on from there.
a song from the Fray in his honor, perhaps.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to put one
Except
in
we'd
there.
have to pay the Fray, so we're not doing that.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Well, let's move on from that. Let's talk about something a little less upbeat, a little less exciting. So what's going on with Mr. Art Briles. So another scandal, Steve, as I understand it, has rocked the college football world.
you know, Art Briles gets a lot of throwback from Redskins fans because of the connection with Robert Griffin, and so he kind of gets the bounce back from the Griffin hate.
Right, this is the Baylor head coach,
yeah,
for
but
those of you at home.
this is not about that. What has happened at Baylor is that an investigation uncovered that the Baylor football team specifically, and perhaps the athletic department generally, has allegedly conducted a systematic cover-up of sexual assault reporting by Baylor football players at Baylor against Baylor students, to the point where what was allegedly happening was that a Baylor female student would allege that a football player assaulted her. She would end up meeting with some assistant coach who would go, "Okay, honey, it's okay. You know, just run along now," basically. And they wouldn't report it. And if anybody doesn't know this, there are federal law mandates that sexual assaults be reported by universities. It's not something they can ignore. And so the basic allegation here is that the football team is covering this stuff up to protect the football team. And
right.
It's pretty disgusting.
Art Briles has been suspended pending termination, meaning he's going to get fired. Ken Starr, who's the university president, has been reassigned to chancellor. The athletic department head, the AD, has been suspended pending investigation. It's really ugly. And the reason why I wanted to bring this up is, you know, if there's ever a football program that deserves the death penalty, it seems like this is the reason.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't know what else a football program could do to deserve the death penalty from the NCAA. What worse thing could happen? You know, it's in
well, I can think of one major worst thing that happened that didn't result in a death penalty.
The Jerry Sandusky thing, exactly right. But this is almost worse.
Really?
You know, well, I don't. Maybe not. Maybe that's a wrong thing to say. Both were evil.
They're both real bad. Yeah.
And I just don't understand what else could a team could do to deserve to have to shut the program down when you have a head coach, you know, personally covering up sexual assault. I mean, my God.
Yeah.
It's just, it's awful.
And Steve, from the way it sounds, with all those firings having already been made, it sounds like there's at least substantial evidence that, I mean, it's clear enough that this definitely happened, that all these people have been fired.
Yeah, well, yeah. The Baylor Board of Regents hired a law firm out of Philadelphia to conduct an independent investigation into this. And the report, which I have not read, I don't think has been made public, apparently was just brutal on the athletic department and the football team, you know, generally. So it's I hope the NCAA takes immediate and drastic action, and next year we see Baylor not playing football anymore.
Yeah,
you know, and
that'd be crazy.
Of course, yeah, the opposite side to that is, you know, the argument you always hear, of course, is that there's innocent people there who are, you know, just football players, and it's not fair to them.
Right.
You know, but I just think some things are more important. If you're playing football at Baylor, you can transfer to some other school and play somewhere else. You know, if you're good enough to make a major D1 program, you can go somewhere else. Let the NCAA waive the 1-year sit-out restriction. Let them go wherever. I think the Baylor program needs to be shut down, like Penn State should have been shut down.
So, Steve, just out of curiosity, do you know specifically what Art Briles' involvement in this was? I understand, I heard a little bit that he might have been involved in kind of like publicly shaming a potential victim. I don't know anything more than that. What was his role?
There were those allegations, you know, that he was kind of shaming the victims, along with some of his assistant coaches. The allegations were that the victim ended up talking to reported this, and it ended up in front of assistant coaches with Art Briles' knowledge, and the assistant coaches, you know, said, okay, you know, honey, you know, go on your way, it's fine, you know, all be well, and they did not report it to the university. You know, the head coach, when he finds out about stuff like that, has a legal obligation to report it to his superiors. The superiors have a legal obligation to report it to the university. You know, the head of the university, and none of them did that.
Yeah.
None of them did that.
Well,
on a systematic way. Apparently, I'm sorry, Robbie, but the allegation was that there have been no sexual assault reports whatsoever regarding the Baylor football team for 4 years straight, which apparently is unheard of. in college football, you always have one or two every once in a while in almost every
Right.
program. They had none whatsoever. It's a tragedy.
So
And it's
suspiciously squeaky clean, in
it's
other words.
tragedy, and it's gross and disgusting, and I hope the program is shut down.
Well, did you guys see the article that came out following these reports that came out of the Baylor stuff from Chris Corman from USA Today?
I did not.
The headline is, "The time has come to divorce big-time football from our universities." Basically saying that because of all this stuff, that universities shouldn't have a football team associated with their school, all this other stuff, and there needs to be like some sort of check and balance. Well, which I agree, but to eliminate sports,
That's drastic.
football in general from a university is just unheard of.
Well, let's talk
A
about
lot of
boggles
these
my mind.
universities are going to depend on the money raised by the football
Exactly,
program to
and
function.
it's not just football that needs to be removed. If you want to talk
basketball.
yeah, basketball. I mean, you have the Louisville stuff that went on with the escorts to entice recruits to play for them. It's not just football.
Baylor in particular had a scandal 10 years ago, if you guys remember. A Baylor football player committed murder and is in prison. And if I recall, I may have this wrong, Baylor people, so don't criticize me, but I believe the head coach of the Baylor basketball team was involved in like a cover-up of it, I think. It was a really serious scandal back then. But here's my point. I hear what you're saying, Robbie, about what the USA Today guy said, but just think about like your team, ODU. You played at Old Dominion, and it's a quality program, fine people, but it's not producing, oodles of first-round draft picks every year.
We've yet to
right?
have a player drafted.
Yeah, and so you guys were there for an education and to play football, but I would assume that probably a very high percentage of people graduate and move on and are productive citizens. That's a different thing than like Florida State. Or Baylor.
We weren't squeaky clean either. I mean, we had some players that did some bad things, and they did get released from the program, and we, handled it the proper way. It wasn't covered up or anything. So, yeah, go ahead.
But I don't think you can paint every program with that broad a brush. Is my point. For every Miami in the '90s, who were basically a bunch of drug dealers and and just bad people there, and every Baylor University going on. There's a small program. There's an ODU. There's an Appalachian State. There's a whole host of little small schools that are doing it the right way, and the players are there for the right reasons, which is to get an education. And if the NFL happens, it happens. And so I think if you can't just cut off college football from every program,
Right.
Because would do too much damage to these kids. And to the universities who are depending on the money. What you're really talking about are the bad apples that are the big-time programs. That's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's just such an asinine suggestion in so many ways. First of all, there's a lot of kids who wouldn't get into school if they didn't get scholarships related to sports. The sports programs bring in huge amounts of money for the school. I mean, it's a suggestion that someone makes, and they're just purely talking out of their ass.
It's a knee-jerk reaction to a terrible situation.
Yeah, and I mean, I would understand, as to your last point, Steve, if we did more to to get the bad seeds out of there, but to end the college football.
I mean, it is
Jesus
a joke
Christ, give me a break.
at a certain level. Like the Duke basketball program is a joke, right? The Kentucky basketball program is a joke. The USC football team is a joke. USC is a very, very highly rated private academic school that is it's an elite school in terms of admissions rate. You don't go to USC if you're just an average student, right?
Right.
But they've got every bad apple that they can possibly, bring in as long as he can play football or basketball is there. It's a joke.
Right.
It is a complete
Right.
joke. Calipari in Kentucky, in basketball, great coach, nobody deny that, great recruiter. Those kids aren't students. They're just not students, and it's not a part of the university. And it is a complete joke. And it is a farce to even consider that a part of the university function. But that's not for every Kentucky. There's an ODU out there, or there's a lot of other schools like that who are doing it the right way and for the right reasons. It's just the bad apples at the top who have to do that in order to compete at an elite level.
Yeah. This is all really interesting to me. I feel like we could do a whole episode on this. I don't every school is different and treats it differently. I can just say from my experience at Coastal, I always thought it was funny. I've read, and Robbie, I don't know if your experience is like this, but the football team at Coastal they would all take classes together that would be kind of like taught by someone in the athletic department. So it's like an assistant. Yeah, it's like an assistant coach is teaching like math. And the only people in the math class are the football team. So, I mean, Coastal even, I think, it's a smaller school. I had a great experience there. But, I think sometimes, once again, to your last point, Steve, these schools will take in, people who aren't the greatest students, to put their sports programs on the map. And they'll just kind of push them through the system until, through to graduation. It's an interesting philosophical thing to talk about. Was it good
my
or was it
undergrad
bad?
experience was drastically different just because of the nature of the school I went to. But I think what you are talking about is probably more the norm than not in terms of the academics.
Yeah.
For most schools.
Yeah.
And Coastal
would
isn't a
imagine
football
so.
power or anything. I mean, they're another school and
No.
they're doing their thing, but they're going to get blown out 65-0 by Ohio State.
Right.
And yet they they still know they have to eke these guys through math class.
Right.
That's a whole
exactly.
other discussion, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually think this is a really cool topic, interesting topic, and I've thought a lot about it. But we'll save the rest for another day, I suppose. I think we still have our listener poll. Is that
Yes.
correct? What was our listener poll for our wonderful, beautiful
The
listeners
listener
this week?
poll: do you think all Skins players should attend voluntary OTAs? Which, and here the options were: yes, do your job, players. No, voluntary means voluntary. Yes, because the team's going to suffer otherwise if you aren't there. And no, it's May. Who cares what they're doing? So I will just give you my. If I voted, I didn't vote. But if I but
You
if I
didn't
did
vote on your own poll.
I would have voted yes, do your job, because I don't care what the CBA says. You need to be there, do your job. That would have been me. What about you guys?
Yeah, I'm with you, Steve. I mean, it's your job. You need to be there. You should be there, so be there. But again, like we said before, it's not going to affect everything in the grand scheme. But you should be there.
Steve, what was the wording on the second yes?
Yes was
answer?
team suffers otherwise.
Team
And what I
suffers
was meaning
otherwise.
by that, whether that came across or not, what I meant by that is if you have a player who's not there, the team chemistry is going to suffer a little bit because your teammates are there and you can't practice with your teammates. You're going to have a little bit harder time learning the playbook and everything else. That's what I meant by team suffers otherwise.
And I think I'm going to go with that answer because I can't remember who said it, but I think the leadership argument was one of the better arguments made about him not being there. Is if you're going to be a leader, act like an effing leader. And you don't want your leaders on the team and your high-played players on the team to be lackadaisical about their job. So I'm going to go with that. Care to reveal what our listeners
Our
said?
listeners actually, it was a very close vote this week. 39% said no,
Ooh.
voluntary is voluntary. And
Wow, that is way higher
well,
than I would have
lagging
thought.
very, very close behind at 38% was yes, do your job.
Oh my God,
18%
that's hilarious.
no, said no, it's May. Who cares? Why are we talking about this? And a mere 5% had the category of yes, it's because the team's going to suffer if you're not there. So that was
Wow, I'm a 5%.
yeah, you're a 5%er. If only it could translate into income, right?
I am shocked. Yeah, if only. I am shocked that so many people were not concerned about this at all. I mean, that really surprises me. 39%.
And I'll just read a couple
Wow.
responses here. Our buddy Lou Venturi, who had the question 2 weeks ago, chimed in and said, it would be nice to have 100% attendance, but who really cares as long as they show up for training camp and are healthy.
Fair enough.
Sean75 said, if you're a well...
Not me.
Not Sean. It would be SHAWNN, Sean.
Oh,
Yeah.
God.
He said, if you're a well-rounded, seasoned vet who performs on Sundays, then it's no big deal to skip, but rooks and new free agents should attend.
It's a fair point, Sean. Learn to spell your name.
I'd say
Good
he'd
job.
probably say you need to learn how to spell your name, but
Scene.
Hey, man. I went the Irish route. That's the way
Dave,
to go.
who is at WSK28 Rules, says, being this early in OTAs, I'm more concerned with rookies and undrafted free agents. Up to third-year players will be fine. Our very some guy named Alex Zeese actually commented.
Huh.
Oh, that
Yeah,
guy's
he
a
is.
chump.
He said, got to support the team. And I think what he meant by that is you should be there because the team needs you. It sounds like...
How many of those words were spelled wrong, Steve?
He spelled team, T-I-M, team.
Oh.
We all know that Alex is spelling deficient
Yeah.
on this show.
He's a spelling
Yeah,
superstar,
absolutely.
ladies and gentlemen. We're going to put together a little document of his best spelling
I don't know if
mistakes
we'd be able to
someday
decipher
and
what
share
he's
it with
saying
you.
if we had all of those in there.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'll read one or
Gotta
one or
love
two
him.
more real fast. Jeff Cox
Yes.
at WX Freak 2689 said, yes, the money they're making for one, meaning they're making a lot of money, be there. Plus, there's always something to work on and learn. You know.
Well, that's
Yeah.
true. He
So,
ain't wrong.
There's a few responses. Thanks everybody who participated. I think you guys,
you guys
in the
rock for
majority were
participating
wrong
in
by
those.
saying voluntary equals voluntary, but that's just my opinion.
Thanks for
Yes, thank you.
participating, even though you were wrong as shit. Yeah. All right. Well, what else is new, guys?
Outside
I mean, we've
linebackers.
got a couple minutes here.
Wanna do
Yeah.
outside
I mean,
linebackers.
oh, outside. Jesus, did
No,
we not
didn't.
get to
I
that?
kept
Good
waiting for you to
lord.
bring it up, and you hadn't.
Oh, no, Jesus Christ. Okay, well, let's talk about outside linebackers. We got some outside linebackers on the team, ladies and gentlemen. There's Kerrigan, there's Murphy, and there's...
Mumble.
You guys were
Oh.
supposed to take
Oh,
over
okay.
at some
Mumble.
point.
Robbie.
I was just
Just
listening to him mumble. See how
Robbie,
far he
lead
can
us
get.
away
Yes,
on
that's
our
Sesky.
position group breakdown for outside linebackers.
All right. Well, we have pretty talented top three in outside linebackers with Ryan Kerrigan, Junior Gillette, and Preston Smith.
Boom.
There's one
I love
name
those
that's
three
missing
names.
from that we have already discussed, so we're not going to talk about him. Trent Murphy.
Goes
He-
without
I-
being said.
I put him in as a defensive tackle or as a defensive lineman.
D end,
Yeah.
slash D tackle, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, obviously those three are our top three guys. Behind them are a bunch of, no name, undrafted guys slash free agent guys who are basically going to be fighting for that fourth outside linebacker spot. So right now we have we got Houston Bates is still on the team. He's I guess would be our initial
Deep in the
initial
third slot.
Promise last year.
Yeah, he showed some promise. He's a good special teams player. I think you could basically say he's our what's the word? Incumbent,
He's the
fourth
leader
guy.
in the clubhouse for the spot.
Yeah, he's the leader in the clubhouse for the spot. Behind him is Shiro Davis from Texas. He's an edge kind of guy. Then we got who else?
Well, you have some guys like Carlos Fields, who they signed, this offseason.
Right.
Undrafted free agent. You've got Lyndon Trail.
Lyndon Trail, who's an interesting player, by the way. 6'7", 270. He's from Norfolk
Biggest
State.
linebacker you will ever see.
He's from Norfolk State, so I might have crossed paths with him at one point.
Do you remember him?
No, I don't remember him, but I mean, I assume he was there the same years I was there at ODU. Maybe I was definitely a couple years older than him, I think, or a couple, I
Well,
think.
Lyndon Trail is 25 years old, born in 1991. And so, yeah, I think he's probably been out of
Nope.
the NFL for a year and
Okay,
probably
so
was there with you.
he was at Norfolk State from 2012 to 2014. So if I played him, it was in my final year at ODU during the playoffs when we played them in the first round of the
There
playoffs.
you go. You'd think you'd remember a 6'7" linebacker.
Yeah, I don't remember him.
Here's what I want to say about this. I'll leave the X's and O's analysis to Robbie, but again, if you look at the salary cap stuff, Ryan Kerrigan has a massive, massive, massive contract. 5 years, $57.5 million, 23.78 guaranteed. He's got $17.8 million in dead cap this year. He's got an $8.45 million cap hit. He's the guy who's been to the Pro Bowls. But I'll say this
right.
about Kerrigan. If I can find my stats, which I can't.
Are we going to talk about his less
Well,
than
it's not
stellar
less than stellar.
recent?
Sorry, folks. I had it in order and I lost it.
God, look
All
at
right,
all those
here we go.
pages.
I got
You're a
him.
psychopath.
All right, Ryan Kerrigan. 7.5 sacks, 8.5 sacks, 8.5 sacks, 13.5 sacks, 9.5 sacks, 41 tackles, 42 tackles, 47 tackles, 51 tackles. 33 tackles in his in last year. This is a guy who had one elite year. 13.5 sacks is elite. That puts you up there at the top of the bunch almost every year. It may not be the most, but it's up there in the top 5.
4 of those were against, I believe,
Yes,
Yeah,
they were.
however,
in,
that's
in
true.
one game.
But he still did it. Every
That's true.
other year, if you average that out mathematically, you're looking at about 8 sacks a year.
Which is still
good.
still good. I mean, it's not elite. I think we can all say that he's not an elite pass rusher. I mean,
But,
he had that great
that's
year.
where I'm going with it. He had
Yeah.
one great year. He's not an elite pass rusher, but he's got an elite pass rusher contract.
Yeah.
And we should have signed him, and I'm not saying we shouldn't have signed him. He's maybe our best defensive player. If at least if you compare potential and youth to production. But there's a guy who's got a big contract who's thus far, except for 1 year, has not proven to be an elite player.
No, and he had his rough stretch. He had his rough stretch for a good portion of the beginning of the season last year too.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
we weren't shy about criticizing him last season when he
Right.
deserved it.
Yeah, we criticized him on this show for that reason. It was like almost half the year he looked, maybe a third of the year he looked bad, I thought.
Yeah.
Now, Junior Gillette, if Junior Gillette produces at an elite level, which if you talk to Junior, he's going to do,
Yeah, he's
but
convinced
right now
of it.
this year he's making, he's got a $1.1 million cap hit, a $1 million base, and a $1.6 million total contract, which he's got a bunch of incentives in there. Now,
Chump
yeah,
change.
and that's my point. So if Junior Gillette puts up 13 sacks this year, is the team going to sign him to another 5-year, $57 million contract? Let's listen to Junior Gillette's production, shall we? No, because he's an interesting dude. He's from Haiti, grew up in Haiti, went to Temple, and then, I've never even heard of Stillman College. He spent time at 2 different universities. Undrafted free agent, came out of nowhere. In 2010, played in 4 games that year, but he's been active ever since then. 4.5 sacks in 2011, 5 sacks in 2012. 2013, he put up 12 sacks, and then 2014, 10 sacks. And that was the year, coincidentally, he became a starter. Was those 2 years.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have a lot of tackles, 29 tackles, 33 tackles. He's a dedicated pass rusher. But this guy mathematically is averaging 11 sacks a year for 2 years.
Right.
So if he does that or more,
Yeah.
he becomes our best pass rusher, and he's made it abundantly clear this offseason he wants a big contract.
Yeah.
And he's going to prove that he wants a big contract. So are we really going to have 2 players, who are basically 4-3 DEs, pass rushing DEs more than anything? Are we going to have 2 players that have got, $8 and $10 million cap hits a year?
I think that depends on what we get from Preston Smith in his playing time. If Preston Smith has another big year, has 8 sacks or plus, then I think they'll say, and assuming Junior has 12 or more sacks, I think if Preston Smith is able to produce in the playing time that he gets in that same aspect, I think that would make them feel more confident about letting Junior go.
Or will they let Ryan Kerrigan go?
Robbie, what if neither Kerrigan or Preston Smith plays well this coming year?
Then, shoot, I mean, I think you'd almost have to pay Junior Gillette. If he does produce like he says he will, then yeah, I think you almost have to, because you can't have, a lack of pass rush. You have to have a pass rush. And I really think he's going to be that guy for us. I mean, watching his film, he's just an electric, explosive pass rusher. I mean, as an offensive lineman, his pass rushing stance is intimidating. He's like really low to the ground. He looks like he's about to fire off like a pistol, just like go, and he's gone. Yeah, he's scary. He's got to move for anything that the lineman does. He's not your one-trick pony pass rusher. He has moves for anything that's thrown at him. So that's what you need out of your top pass rusher.
I'll say this. Ryan Kerrigan's contract. This year, he's got a massive dead cap number, $17.8 million.
Whoa.
Next year,
Dude.
well, that's dead cap. That's not cap hit, okay?
Right. That's
he's
right.
not going anywhere. Next year, though, he's got an $11.7 million cap hit, $9.6 million dead cap, and the dead cap goes down from there every year. So next year, if Preston Smith.
Next year, he'd be like cutting Andre Roberts.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's still a lot of dead money to put on, but they could ultimately save money. So I'm sitting here wondering if Preston Smith becomes a beast, Junior Gillette becomes a beast,
Yeah. Goodbye, Ryan.
I mean, unless Ryan takes a big step forward, but I think we have a good sample of Ryan Kerrigan's performance. We've seen him for 5 years now, and he's, aside from that one Jacksonville game, he's an 8 to 8.5 sack a year guy. That's what he is.
Yeah. Well, think
We're
about
gonna
it
have
this
Redskins
way.
fans burning down our door with
I know,
pitchforks and torches.
just be. I'm not suggesting
Yeah.
the team should cut Ryan Kerrigan. I'm just saying there could be a major salary cap problem if you have Junior Gillette balling out.
Yeah.
You have Preston Smith developing, right as he's getting to the end of his rookie contract.
Yeah.
And then you also have Ryan on a massive contract. You can't have 3 guys on massive contracts as pass rushers. You can't do it from a salary cap perspective. So something is going to give. I'm just suggesting that Kerrigan, being the older guy,
If anything, maybe they just rework his contract.
right, they may have to do that. Please understand, I'm not saying that Skins should cut Ryan Kerrigan. Not saying that. I'm just pointing out the problem that will develop in a year. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, I love Ryan Kerrigan as much as the next
He's
guy,
not an elite
but
player.
I think he's not an elite player, and I think beyond your first year, I mean, Steve, you have a great point that he's young, and his youth to potential ratio is great, but outside your first year in the NFL, do you really get much time to develop at all? I mean, not really. If you get to the point a couple years down the road after you get drafted that you're getting benched for part of the season, you're not, nothing's guaranteed. Nothing's guaranteed. And as much as we all love Ryan Kerrigan, he might not be here
I think
forever.
the key is Preston Smith.
Yeah.
I just have a feeling Junior's going to do well this year.
As long as he's healthy, I think he's going to be a monster. He has all the motivation in the world. He's a very emotional guy. Like, he's very passionate, very outspoken about his feelings. So I mean, I don't think he's just some blowhard that's just talking to talk. But he has the ability to back it up by looking at his stats and his film. He has that ability.
Well, Robbie, last year, I seem to remember last year at training camp time, you reported to us that your observations in training camp was that Gillette was the only one that could beat Trent Williams in one-on-ones.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely
Nice.
true.
I mean, we haven't seen anybody beat Trent Williams on a consistent basis ever.
And I never saw Kerrigan beat him. I think Preston Smith could beat him, or at least become that kind of talent to beat him. Speaking of Preston Smith, it needs to be mentioned too that he's kind of shed some of his baby fat. He's leaned out some, looks more toned and a lot more quick and athletic than he was last year. So he should be even more explosive this year. I'm very excited what he can do. The group itself in general, I think they're all going to complement each other. I think Gallette's going to get a lot of attention. That's going to leave Kerrigan getting one-on-one opportunities, Preston Smith getting one-on-one opportunities. If we're in like a third down and long, obvious pass situation, I would definitely put Preston Smith and Gillette on the edge, on both edges, and then I'd probably bump down Kerrigan to like a 3-technique D-tackle, pass rusher.
And I think you'd want to have Gillette on the right edge to be on the blind side
Against
of the
the left
right-handed
tackle.
quarterback.
Yeah.
And Smith on the other side. And that, Kerrigan has always been our on the left side. Even when Brian Arakpo was here and was hurt, they never moved Kerrigan over to the right side.
Well, Kerrigan's partially deaf too, isn't he? He's got like a.
I wasn't aware of that. If that's the case.
I'm pretty sure he's
Oh,
he's
wow.
got like some hearing deficiency in his left ear, so that's why he doesn't line up at right edge a lot because he can't hear the cadence
didn't know that.
as well.
The more you know.
Yeah.
I just real quick on the rest of this group.
Yeah, wow.
You know, these guys who are kind of competing behind Gillette, Kerrigan, and Smith. You know, the Bates. You know, this guy Ajiro Ederain, who we signed, Carlos Fields, Lyndon Trail. A lot of these guys are pass rushers.
Yeah.
You know, if you look at what they did in college, and you know, sort of their body types, some of these guys are more like 4-3 defensive end types. And so I think, these are the guys we signed as undrafted free agents. So I think what has happened is Scott McGloin really has done what he can to improve the pass rush.
Yeah.
You know, he really is concerned about that. I don't know how many of these guys are going to cover, you know, I don't know, Antonio Gates, you know,
Right.
downfield or anything. But a lot of these guys are pass rushers. And it wouldn't surprise me, just based on how good Scott is on finding these guys, that one of them comes out of thin air to become a quality pass rusher.
Yeah. I'm definitely going to have my eyes on Lyndon Trail in training camp just because that size. I'm sure he has really long arms, too, being 6'7", so he'll be someone to keep your eye on in training camp for sure. One of the tallest,
and
he'll be
I'll
one of
say-
the tallest
You heard it
guys
here
on the
first,
field,
folks.
except
Yeah.
for Ty and Secchi.
And you mentioned Adam Hayward and Mike Wakefield last week as more as inside linebacker types. I had them listed as outside linebackers just because that's what, you know, they were listed at in some of the contract websites. But, you know, those are the guys that may not be pass rushers and are more inside types, no matter
Right.
what, you know, Spotrac says.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
No, the situation will clarify itself as OTAs in the offseason roll along. Ladies and gentlemen, guys, did I forget anything else before
You kind of,
I
because you
wrap
did
this
kind of
thing?
sort of forget
'Cause
the most important part of the show, you know, and the.
you know I'm want to do this, yes. As long as I didn't forget any other major point on our agenda, I think we'll leave you there to enjoy your beautiful, hot, sunny, nice Saturdays. I'm sure the same is true down there in Texas, right,
Yeah,
Steve?
we had a hurricane level rains yesterday, but today is perfectly sunny.
Oh, God.
So.
Today is
Yeah.
nice and sunny for you, too.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Because it is a picture-perfect, beautiful day here in the D.C. area. Get outside, do something with your kids, have a barbecue, enjoy your Memorial
80
Day
degrees
weekend.
and sunny.
we will see
this
you.
week.
Oh, you see, you can't get better than that. Come on, let's all get off this computer. Let's get off Skype. Let's go outside and do something fun, do something nice.
Hold
get
the
in
door.
sun.
Hold the door.
We will
for
see
me on
you.
the way out.
Yeah, we will, yeah. So we will see you guys next weekend. Pleasure to have you today. We'll see you next time.
Later.
Take care.